Hey, Brennan here. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Got our top freshman quarterback show for you here today. We already did our running back show. We already did our wide receiver show. Jason DiRienzo and I, again, are going to give you our top incoming freshman quarterbacks. Some of these guys are going to get on the field this year. Some are going to have to wait their turn. But if you play C2C, you play Devy formats. We're in, it's summertime, right? We are talking about our supplemental drafts. These players are going to be taken probably within the first 10 rounds. So you play those formats. You're going to enjoy this. You play Devy. These are going to be 2027 potential quarterback rookie picks. So again, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get to the show. Let's not, tease our listeners and watchers any longer. And let's get this list started. And I'll start us off here. And I see that we have the same person on the top of the list, and that's DJ Lagway. Going to Florida, obviously. And I mean, you just look at this guy. I mean, I'll tell you what I kind of saw when I watched this film. He's got a big arm. His release is a little wonky sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't know if they can be fixable. I'm assuming a quarterback coach can come in and work on that. I would at least hope so. If the guy's got NFL aspirations, if his coach at Florida isn't able to do that, he should be hiring someone outside of the program to do that. But his rushing upside is what just. I mean, he's got the arm strength, right? Seemed to scan the field. I'm not saying, he looked to rush more than he's tried to seem to keep his eyes down the field a lot. But man, 1,000 yards rushing as a senior with 16 rush TDs. I mean, if that doesn't get a future Dynasty fantasy guy, juiced up, I mean, I like
Well,
Raiola. I like
right.
Raiola a lot, but those two are like neck and neck for me, which I'm sure they're the first two in the class. I'm sure they are for a lot of people, but that rushing upside, you just can't ignore.
I completely agree with you. I mean, that rushing upside, even when he runs, I think you're right. I don't know if he's a run first type quarterback because when I saw him take off, it's because he was taking what was given to him
Right.
because he didn't have anybody open at the moment. So that was actually really good to see. So I think he's more of a strategic runner with rushing upside than he is a run first type of quarterback. And that's something that makes me feel a lot better about projecting him to the college level and how he might operate going into the NFL.
Yeah, and one thing I really did mention too in this analysis that I kind of at least want to discuss, so people can get a better education is like what the opportunity is going to be, right? Graham Mertz is going to be
Mhm.
the starter this year, but I'm telling you right now, I think they're going to dabble this guy in his
They
freshman
have to.
season. I think they're going to put some rushing packages in. They're going to put like a
Mhm.
5-6 play package together where they're going to strategically put him in there, and which I think would be really nice. Just to at least get his beak wet a little bit with some
Right.
opportunity, get the jitters out a little bit. But obviously, letting him sit all year would be my main preference as well, just to learn how to be a college guy, get stronger, and understand the playbook. Is he your number one, or do you have somebody different?
No, he's my number 1. I think the only concern that I really had is that when I saw him, in the pocket, he did this weird thing where he always threw either off his back foot or he was, like, throwing while his feet were elevated off the ground. He never like, too many times I saw him not set his base
Hmm.
and throw within the mechanics of that base. Like, he was doing this weird, like, back foot type throw, but at the same time, when he would execute that throw, it's going 50, 60 yards down the field with ease. So I'm
Yeah.
not too concerned with it from what I saw in his film here. I am interested to see how that translates to, him being a college quarterback because that setting his base and getting his feet right are going to be super important. He's not going to be able to pull off the things that he was doing in high school with that release. So
Hmm.
that's the part I want to see how that translates and develops.
Who do you got at number two?
Number 2, I have Dylan Raiola. This is an NFL quarterback to me.
Yeah,
I
man, I
mean,
agree.
the rushing upside is not there, but if there's one quarterback in this class where I'm like, I watched like 30 seconds of his film, I just automatically said to myself, this kid is what the NFL is looking for, like right now. He's got that arm strength where he can sling it downfield, but he's got great touch and
Yeah, he
velocity on
does.
the ball. The just the timing of which that he knows to execute the throw, so the receiver's at the catch point, like he's throwing his receivers open. The the windows, the tiny small windows that he has that he can get the ball and fit it into with perfect accuracy, whether it's in the short, intermediate, or deep parts of the field, came away super impressed. Nebraska, I don't know how they pulled it off, but they got a special talent, Raiola. I love the fact that we know he's going to be the starter and that he's going to have immediate opportunity because he deserves it and he needs to have that on his resume. The rushing upside is not there, but this is
Mhm.
one of those guys where I don't really care. I think he's special enough to overcome that rushing upside, even in fantasy, because I think he can sling it all over the field with great arm strength and accuracy, and I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was toying between him at number 1 and 2 for
I
exactly
was
what you
too.
just said
I
because
actually had him above Lagway, and I was like, this is the rushing upside is too
yeah,
tremendous.
I
Like,
mean,
I
if
love
I think if
Lagway.
these two guys had like 200, 300 yards in high school their senior season, I think I'd have Rayola at number 1. If you go back and
Yeah.
just watch the Polynesian Bowl that
Yep.
this guy
I agree.
played in, is I have in my scouting notes here effortless arm talent, good mobility and pocket awareness, but not a scrambler. And I think you would mention that as well. Plus, like he's
Hmm.
going to be starting this year, which is nice. So, which is kind of a
Right.
good thing, but it's kind of could be scary too because if he comes out and flops, his value could like kind of go down a little bit. But usually we get 2 years of these guys sitting on the benches, and the name alone kind of keeps these values up. And I've got film breakdowns with Luigi on this channel, guys, on my YouTube channel, of Rayola and Lagway if you want to watch film breakdowns and kind of go over their high school profiles. So, all right, so we have the number 1 and number 2 the same. I will kick us off at because I have Rayola at number 2 as well, obviously. So Julian
Hmm.
Sayin, going to Ohio State. I have at number 3. This guy had a 76% completion percentage as a senior. I thought the velocity on his throws were really good, and especially in the middle of the field, the seam routes. And I feel, that there are harder passes to complete than the ones that are the boundary long, raindrops that they throw, 40 yards down the field and have the guy run under it. Like when you can actually dissect the middle of the field and hit guys in stride. And I thought he looked really good doing that. He committed to Bama, then now flipped to Ohio State. And I think he's got some mobility as well. So I don't believe he was a huge, scrambler, but he certainly could maneuver and around the pocket. And the one thing I talked about at the beginning of this whole thing about that was going through his progressions. I seem to feel like he did that. And I liked also his one last comment in my scouting notes here is that I loved his ball placement
Hmm.
when he was on the run. It was like, he's right-handed and he's, rolling out to his left and he throws the ball and really just had nice touch and velocity and accuracy on that side. He looks like the real deal. And, I think Devin Brown's a Jag who was, if he was any good at Ohio State, I think he would have been, the presumed starter. And Will Howard, I think, will
Agreed.
obviously be gone next year. So, this is a guy you're going to have to wait on like most of these quarterbacks. So sorry to go long winded on
No, it's
saying
okay.
here.
Yeah.
But
I
so
mean,
who's
Stan's
your
my
number
number
3?
3 too. So I think you laid out everything perfectly with him. The number one thing I came away from is I think this is a highly accurate quarterback. I think you nailed it. His ball placement is phenomenal, and he's not rattled in the pocket. He understands how to
Mhm.
navigate, maneuver within the pocket, stay poised, calm, keep his eyes downfield, and deliver a really beautiful ball. So this is a kid that I feel really good about too. Um, you know, Ohio State has some, commitments there, and it's going to become a pretty deep room, especially with
Mhm.
Tavian St. Clair now committing to Ohio State. So the competition is going to get interesting. But I really believe in Sayin and his ability, and I think at some point he will be the starter.
Yeah, and with the transfer portal is so easy now that you got to really focus on the talent. Even though you want the opportunity to be there,
Hmm.
only because I mean, Christ, they have the best wide receivers usually. They always have those great
No
receivers
kidding.
that make those quarterbacks. All right, I'll pull it off to you. So, who is your number 4? We're gonna do 7 guys total. So, who's your number 4?
Yeah, I actually tried not to put this guy at number 4 because I didn't want to go in order with, the national services of like On 3 and 24/7. But Luke Kromenhoek just looks like he's going to
Hmm.
be that dude. And in terms of fantasy and real life NFL, he was actually a wide receiver when FSU originally, signed him on. So he became a quarterback and then just developed naturally, like it was always going to be a natural development for him to become a quarterback because he plays the position so well. I put a film out when I was watching and breaking down his Huddle film where he just reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield the way he plays. You know, he plays with a lot of heart, a lot of competitiveness, doesn't allow a collapsing pocket to stop the play. He'll find a way to get creative, navigate outside the pocket, throw with ease on the run with good accuracy,
Hmm.
hitting his receivers in stride. He throws his receivers open. I really like a lot of what I saw from Luke, and I actually think that he's got that athletic upside too, where he's not a strategic runner, but he understands what opening and gaps are available. Like he'll step up into the pocket, and if there's a lane, he'll take it. If not, he'll go through his progressions and feed his receiver the ball. So I like the fact that he's not rattled under pressure, which is great to know from a kid who literally converted from wide receiver to quarterback within a limited amount of time. So I think he'll, we got DJ Uyangalele, who's going to be the starter for FSU this year. After this year, it's going to be Luke, and I don't think he's going to let anybody else have that job. They love him. He loves FSU. It's a nice marriage, and I love the rushing upside.
Yeah, I was saying for a big guy at 6'3", almost 200 pounds, his mobility was really impressive. He's number 5 for
Yeah.
me. So, and I agree exactly with what you said. Not that we want to keep agreeing with each other, but I was just like,
I know.
I'm watching all these Huddle films and I'm watching this guy. I kept, I watched him 2 or 3 times each as I'm going through them. And I'm like, I'm not going to drop the guy just to put someone else to be spicy. I mean, he just does look like a complete back. And the one thing that I have in my, you hit all the points in my scouting notes here, but was, I think he's got a really strong arm and a really quick throwing motion. I mean, he just seemed
Yeah,
to,
that throwing motion. Good point. I forgot about that.
it was just
Glad
like
you brought that up.
it was just like a rifle that was just in and
Yeah.
out of his arm in his hand. So I, like I said, he was number 5 for me. But my number 4 was Walker White from Auburn.
Mm.
I love his size. He's 6'3", 220, his pocket awareness and mobility. I thought also, I mean, this guy's a little heavier than Luke by like 20 pounds, but same thing with the pocket awareness and the mobility. I really kind of, as I was watching these Huddle films, it was really important for me. I just kept leaning to like how these guys navigate the pocket with keeping their eyes down the field. They all have big arms. They all like look like they can distribute the ball. But I mean, this guy, I think is the entire package. Reading the field, big arm. Just there wasn't anything I saw. And for a 6'3", 220-pound quarterback, he rushed as a junior in varsity 821 yards and 16 touchdowns. And
Mm.
as a senior, he rushed for 534 yards and 8 touchdowns. So not are you getting a big, thick build, you're getting kind of like the same size as DJ Lagway, where they're just a big frame receiver, look tough, running with the football. I just really liked them. So Walker White was my number 4.
Yeah, um he's not number 4 for me or anything, but he's not too far down my list. I don't disagree with anything that you said. Number 5 for me is gonna be Ethan Grunkemeyer, the Penn State quarterback. And, again, when I was watching all this film, I'm watching all these, the different players, but the one thing that really stood out to me is just the poise and the awareness within the pocket, understanding how to navigate, and then
Hmm.
throwing with very good touch and anticipation, throwing his receivers over, throwing his receivers open. The ball placement was great on deep balls. It's almost very textbook from what you would normally see from a high school recruit in their highlight plays, right? But at the same time, I'm looking at the opportunities here. Drew Allers probably going off to the NFL, I would assume, after this season. Hopefully, we see some development from him. But Penn State needs a quarterback they can rely on, and I think Grunkemeyer could be that guy. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's got the poise, he's got the accuracy, he's got the deep ball touch and velocity. So I actually think that he could be a nice fill-in for them, not losing anything once Aller goes off to the NFL. So Grunkemeyer, I have at number 5.
Well, my Penn State newsletter that I get, football newsletter each and every month, they've been talking highly about this kid. So he's in
Oh, there you go.
there.
That's good.
So he was there spring, getting some work. He's on campus, learning the playbook. So he is
Good
not
news.
in my top 7, but he's not that far out. He's definitely in my top 10. So My my number 5 was Luke Kromenhoek, so we already talked about him, I think, at length. So I'm going to go to my number 6 guy, and I'm going to go with Noland. Again, another Ohio State, quarterback. This is the only lefty in the group that I at least watch. So he's a southpaw kind of guy. So,
Yeah.
but again, you want to talk about a quick release. I was
His
really
release was unbelievable.
yeah, so it
Holy
just
crap.
again, it was just like really quick. It was
Yeah.
he made a decision, it was out of his hands. Um, so he's just got that gunslinger type mentality, right? So there's a risk, taking Aaron Nolan, because if we're going to talk about opportunity, you talked about Julian Sayin, and then you mentioned somebody else coming in. Is there like a
Yeah, my
2025 friend?
QB1 in this cycle right now is Tavy and Sinclair, committed to Ohio State. Big guy, like I think he's like 6'4", 230 pounds already with
Yeah,
athletic upside. So I
yeah,
really like Tavy and Sinclair.
yeah. I'm sorry, I
So
can't.
so it's a very deep room. It's a very
It's
crowded
it's a
room.
deep room. I can't get to the 2025 freshman. Shit, I'm hardly getting through the 2024 guys here to start on 2025. But in any case, it's a high recruit, like you said, it's going to muddy the waters. But I can't let
Yeah.
that dissuade me from what I see on the field. It doesn't bring a lot of rushing upside, but super productive, throwing for over 10,000 yards in
Mm.
high school. Um, with 126 touchdowns, and the kid's a winner. So, and he went to the
Yeah.
Elite 11 and really, I believe, really shined in all of those things last year. So, Aaron Nolan was my number 6. Who's your number 6?
Yeah, my number 6 is Walker White, who you already talked
Okay.
about, and I think you broke him down really well. It's that size speed combination with that strong arm deep ball accuracy.
Hmm.
I think the only thing that holds me back from him, as well as watching some of the film, the ball doesn't really come out very clean. It's wobbly at times,
Hmm.
and you can kind of see it from the back shots when he was throwing that the ball was wobbly, but it still got to the receiver with good anticipation, but I just want to see a more spiraled, clean, tight release from him. Other than that, I mean, the upside in fantasy, I think, is going to be tremendous, and I can't imagine that he won't be the starter, next season. So that is a great opportunity for him to come into, especially with Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman. It looks like Auburn's really taken another step with the receivers that they have. They got Keandre Lambert-Smith and the transfer portal, so they're really trying to surround the quarterback with weapons. So that is good to see as well.
All right, why don't you round us off? Who's your number 7 guy?
Yeah, number 7 is probably not a guy that's on many lists, but Tyler Cherry is going
Mm.
to Indiana. As I watched this kid, he just looks very similar to maybe like a poor man's Dylan Raiola. Like, I like the arm strength. I like the poise in the pocket. I like the navigation. He sets a good base. He throws with the anticipation. Nice touch and velocity on the ball, not rattled under pressure. He'll roll out as necessary, throws on the run with a clean release, anticipation, gets the ball right to his quarterback's hand or his receiver's hands. So there's a lot that I came away and was really impressed with Tyler Cherry. Looks like I think Rourke is the quarterback there now at Indiana. I can't imagine that without anybody coming in from the transfer portal, that Cherry won't be the starter at Indiana next year, or maybe as soon as this year if he can put it all together. But I would much rather be next year. But came away really impressed with just his size and just the mental IQ at the position from what I saw from his film.
I like it. I have didn't really get to see a lot of his film, so I'll have to go take a look at that. My number 7 guy is Ryan Puglisi. I think that's how you say his name. From Georgia commit.
Yeah.
Now he committed to Georgia before, Raiola did, and even when Raiola, committed to Georgia, he didn't leave, right? But we know Raiola did. Um,
Hmm.
but I really liked what I saw, when I watched his film. Again, the arm talent, the moxie, the toughness. He was a baseball standout also in high school and throws a 97-mile-per-hour fastball. So giving you some fun facts here. And he went to the Elite 11, and I was watching the interviews because I tend to like to watch interviews too on, just the intangibles. And every time he, again, when the Elite 11, when he was at those things last year, Raiola was a commit to Georgia, and everyone just kept asking him, "How do you feel about being second fiddle to this guy, being second fiddle to this guy?" And he said, "I'm not scared of anyone, and I'm going to win that room even with him there." And I just loved his moxie and the way
Oh,
he
that's
held
awesome.
himself, and just really came away impressed. And, I watched his film and he just looked as good as any of the other guys that I watched and just came away like super impressed with his professionalism. Kirby's smart. He's got an injury, so he really didn't play this spring, but he is on campus. He's Carson Beck is saying he's, immersed in the playbook. And, Gunnar Stockton is there, and Jaden Rashada transferred into Georgia this year, but I'm not scared of that guy. I was never a big fan of his game anyway. But this guy could be like a Carson Beck maybe in 2 years. You know what I mean? Carson Beck,
Right.
2 years ago was sitting on the bench, and I'll bet you he was free. This guy's pretty much free in your C2C supplemental drafts, which is kind of what I want to pivot to before we get to our deep dive players. So I just wanted to kind of give everyone a little summary. It's C2C supplemental draft season. And I've done two myself, and my dashboard subscribers have provided a ton as well of their supplemental drafts. And I went through probably 6 or 7, final supplemental drafts, which are, freshman only 15-round drafts of a C2C league. And I just wanted to kind of give you some base framework of where these guys are being drafted. DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola, they are not getting out of round one. In fact, they're like top 5. They're the 1-2 going. There might be Jeremiah Smith is usually number 1. It's usually Lagway, Raiola, in my experience. I'm just giving you some kind of ADP if you have your C2C league coming up soon to kind of get a general idea of where they're going. Julian Sayin is in round 1 and 2. I've not seen him in any of my drafts come out of round 2. Walker White is anywhere between rounds 2 and 4. Luke Kromenhoek, who we both have here, you have him at number 4. I have him at number 5. He didn't get out of round 2, so he seems to be, like your top 4 seem to be the 4 that are going off the board. But here's where it gets a little fun, right? You had Ethan Grunkemeyer. He goes in rounds 3 through 4 is kind of where, and I say actually it's 3 to 5 because I didn't update that because I saw one that he'd sneaked into the middle of the 5th round. So he's like really rounds 3 to 5. Noland, my number 6 quarterback was round number 2 to 4. Your Tyler Cherry, I didn't see him drafted in a couple, but he was not drafted before the 10th round. And my Ryan Puglisi, the Georgia quarterback I just discussed, is going in rounds 4 through 8. So just kind of wanted to give I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of like where they're being drafted, So again, we've got 4 quarterbacks that are consistently not getting out of round 2. And like I said, those first 2 were going pretty quick, which is pretty typical, even though most people probably realize that, but I just wanted to kind of give that data out there. Any final words on the quarterback class at all?
No, I actually think that it's very top heavy. I don't think there's a lot of depth here. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Lagway, Raiola, and Sayin are the 3 guys that we're talking about in the future, but that can all change too. I mean, look at Dante Moore, Malachi Nelson, Arch Manning. Like, those guys have been sitting. We haven't even really seen them play. There's question marks all over the place. So all this can change. But where I feel good are those 3 with Sayin, Lagway, and Raiola. I think they're going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be great to monitor their progression and development.